Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today's video will be my August and September wrap up. I'm sorry if you can hear loud construction noise in the background. They are working at the end of my street and this was the only time that I can film. I don't really know how long they're going to be working, but you probably will hear those noises in the background for the next couple of videos. I apologize. I read 11 books in the last 2 months. I read 5 books in August and 6 books in September. The great news is that I finally read 50 books for the year so far. I'm actually really happy that I've already read 50 books. That was what I put my Goodreads goal as for the year. I mean, I would love to read at least 100, but I don't really see that happening. So I'll just take 50. I'm happy with that. And obviously there are still 3 more months for the year, so I definitely can read, probably a good 10 to 20 books. I'm going to try to knock out some really good books for the rest of the year, but in the meantime, let me talk about everything I read in August and September. For August, the first book I read was Only When It's Us by Chloe Liese. This is the first book in the Bergman Brothers series, and this I gave 2 out of 5 stars. This follows Ryder and Willa, who sit next to each other in class. This is a college romance. They both don't really like each other, or they don't really get along. Willa's also a soccer player, and Ryder is also deaf. I felt like this book was so boring. I did not really enjoy the characters or the romance. I honestly didn't really like Willa. I thought that she was kind of sometimes selfish and just a little self-centered. I did enjoy the family, the Bergman family, and I do own the second book, so I will continue to give this series a try, but I really just didn't enjoy this book. I didn't like the romance. The romance was nothing for me. I didn't feel the connection or the spark between Ryder and Willa. I liked Ryder's development as a character. I did think that he actually had some great development, but also at the same time, I felt like he did kind of a 180 just for our female character. He didn't do anything for himself. It was purely based on how he felt like Willa looked at him or felt about him, if that makes sense. I just didn't really love this, which is a bummer because I did actually really think that I would be obsessed with this series, but this one was just really mediocre for me. I am hoping the second book is better because I do want to continue the series, but if I'm also disappointed by the second book, I won't continue it. Then the next 3 books are books I read for a video, so I will link that video down below. It's where I read 3 poetry books by my favorite musical artists. So the first one I read was Useless Magic, Lyrics and Poetry by Florence Welch. Florence is more known for Florence and the Machine. This is her lyric poetry book, I guess. This I did end up giving a 2 out of 5 stars. I feel like it is quite difficult to rate poetry sometimes because it is a very personal thing and obviously it means more to the artist than the reader, I guess. So there wasn't a lot that I could relate to. I mean, if you were a huge Florence and the Machine fan, I do recommend this, but if you aren't, definitely skip it because the section at the end is the only original poems. This is the only original poems that Florence has in this book, so I think there are 15 to 20 original poems. The rest of this book is lyrics from all of Florence's songs and albums. It's just a big lyric book with a lot of pictures and doodles and just random things. There were 2 poems in here that did speak to me, but other than that, I found this just to be a very basic poetry book, poetry collection. Not much really going on with this one. Then I read Generations of Women from the Moon by Gillian Banks, who is also known as just Banks. This is her poetry book, and this is full on actual poetry. It is full of poems, original material and stuff, and a lot of illustrations that Banks herself has drawn. This I also didn't really love. I did give it 2 out of 5 stars. I did like 3 poems, but other than that, I didn't really feel super connected with any of the poems, and I do think some of them would have made better songs versus written word, if that makes sense. And I spent a lot of money on this for like taxes and shipping and all of that, and it just definitely was not worth the $100 Canadian that I paid for this. I do kind of regret spending that much money on this book, but it was an experience, and I did actually enjoy making the video, but I am disappointed I didn't love this. And then the last poetry book that I read for that video was Violet Bent Backwards Over the Grass by Lana Del Rey. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. It definitely was my favorite out of the 3 that I did read. This one did feel more like original and just very Lana, I guess. It felt very much a lot like her music, but it also felt like it was intended to be a poetry book and to be like written poetry. I did like, I think 2 or 3 of the poems in here as well, but overall I didn't fully connect with everything. I did enjoy also like the pictures in here, and I don't know, it was interesting to get to see a little bit of a different perspective of my favorite musical artists, to see them in a different light and a different medium. So I did enjoy that aspect, but overall I just wasn't really in love with any of these poetry collections. And I don't know, maybe poetry is just not my thing. I feel like I maybe need more experience reading poetry. Then I read Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. This I gave 5 out of 5 stars. This was my first time reading Goblet of Fire. I had never read this book before. I only know the movies. I'm obsessed with the movies, but it is my first time reading the books. Well, it's my first time reading after Prisoner of Azkaban. I read the first 3 before, but I'm finally continuing the series, and I read Goblet of Fire. It's crazy how much they have actually changed from the movie, and I can see why people hate this movie because it is quite different from the book. There's a lot that they didn't include in the movie, so I can understand why people get really frustrated with this specific adaptation. It's just so fun to read these books now that I know the movies by heart, because I can actually pinpoint exactly what they didn't include in the movie, what changed, or what they did differently, stuff like that. There were a lot of interesting storylines in here that I did not even know about, because I feel like no one really talks about them unless you're like a hardcore Harry Potter fan. It was really interesting to read this one, and I definitely really loved the book. And then to end August off, I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sandhu Mandana. This I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this. This follows Mika, who is a witch, and she has been brought up to kind of hide her magic around normal people. She's also been taught to kind of not really interact with other witches. But one day she gets this very interesting message from a, I guess, viewer of hers, because she does like social media and stuff, and they're requesting her help at this very like magical, mysterious house, and she decides to go, and she learns that she is going to be teaching 3 young witches how to do magic, but again, it is forbidden to interact with other witches. Very cute, very sweet, very heartwarming, and I loved the found family aspect and Mika just falling in love with this other family and getting to know all of them and building a bond with each person. I absolutely loved it. There was a small little romance in here with Jamie, who is a librarian. It just felt like a warm, cozy hug, and I feel like this is the perfect read for September or October. Then I started September off with Fallen Academy Year 1 by Leah Stone. This I gave 3 out of 5 stars. This is a paranormal fantasy romance, kind of dystopian a little bit. I feel like I'm not going to explain this very well, so I'm going to read it off the back. When angels fell from the sky to war with the demons that ravaged Earth, their combined powers infected humanity. Now the humans are assigned one of 2 fates, being either demon gifted or angel blessed. After wings sprout from Brielle's back at her awakening ceremony, she's sure she's an angel blessed celestial. It's not until she sees black wings that she realizes something is terribly wrong. I was actually gifted this from Melissa at Once Upon My Bookshelf on Instagram. I will link her Instagram down below. She actually gifted me this like years and years ago, and I'm so glad I finally read it. This was really fun. It was entertaining. I definitely would have loved this back like 10 years ago. I probably would have been obsessed with it, but it did kind of read very early 2010s, if that makes sense. I don't even know when this came out, to be honest. Let me see. Oh, it came out in 2018. I feel like this is more of like a 2012 type of romance. It just felt very dated in a way, and I didn't love the characters or the romance, but the world was definitely really interesting. I did enjoy the world building and all of that stuff. I did find that very fascinating and well developed. I also wasn't a huge fan of the friendships in this book. It did feel very dated and kind of the type of female friendships specifically that I don't love in books, where it's very much based on like partying and boys and all that kind of stuff. I just didn't really love that. It was entertaining, but I don't think I will continue the series. Then I read Out on a Limb by Hannah Bonham Young. This I gave 2 out of 5 stars. I actually did read this in a vlog, so I will link that video down below. This follows Win and Bo, who hook up at a Halloween party, and Win ends up getting pregnant, and she tells Bo, and they figure out what to do. That is literally the plot of this book, because there is nothing that happens in this book. It is so boring. I normally love surprise pregnancy, secret baby tropes. Like, I love those books. I eat them up. They are my favorite trope. When everybody's hating on that trope, I love it. It is my favorite. But this was just so boring. Nothing happened. Like I said, I just feel like the characters were great. I did like them. I also didn't really feel the chemistry between Win and Bo. I couldn't feel their connection or their romance. Other than the main plot, that was kind of the only conflict of this book. There wasn't much else that kind of tested the characters, and so it just felt very easy and kind of like too simple. I didn't feel like the characters really had to fight over anything or like fight for things, if that makes sense. Everything just felt too easy, I guess, for me. I felt like there wasn't really much angst in here. The only angst was really towards the end, and it was really just like a conversation that they needed to have. I think in a way it didn't feel like the characters really fought to be together. It just felt like, oh, this is convenient. I just expected a little bit more substance from this book. I did love the ending. The ending was very cute, and there were some moments I did tear up at, but overall it just didn't really have much going on, and I think I just really hyped up this book because I thought I would love it, considering I know a lot of people love this book, but I ended up giving it 2 stars. The next book I read in September was My Roommate is a Vampire by Jenna Levine. This I also gave 2 out of 5 stars. This follows Cassie, who is an artist, but she's kind of struggling at the moment, and she needs a new place to live. In comes Frederick, who is renting a room out for very cheap, which is very suspicious. So Cassie moves in, and they have very different schedules, so they never really fully interact with each other. And Frederick is a very mysterious man. He has a lot of interesting things going on. He talks very weird. Eventually you learn that Frederick is a vampire, and he has a very interesting proposition for Cassie. I also felt like this book was kind of boring. There wasn't really much going on. I did enjoy the one detailed sex scene that we got. Like, that was really well done in my opinion, but other than that, I didn't really enjoy the characters or the romance. This was my most anticipated read of the year. Like, I was very, very excited for this book. I even ordered the Fairy Loot edition before reading this. Like, I was so certain I was gonna love this book. I was just very, very excited for this, and sadly it did not live up to my expectations. It just felt very like basic, surface level, a very easy vampire romance. It also read very contemporary-like, with an insert of paranormal aspect, which I didn't really like. I personally enjoy my paranormal romances to kind of have like this mysterious atmosphere going on, and that wasn't in here. This was obviously meant to be more of a rom-com with a vampire, and that just honestly really didn't work for me. Then I read Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. I had originally given it 5 stars, and then I really thought about it, and I was like, no, I want to give it 4 stars. First of all, this book is massive. I can't believe I actually read all 800 pages of this book. It's actually pretty similar to the movie, which I enjoyed, but we got to see more characters, which I really loved, like Sirius and the whole order, and even like the Weasley family we got to know more of, especially Molly and Arthur. I think there were just like a lot of things in this book that really upset me and made me angry. It was really nice to get to know more about the world and more about the characters that the movies don't show. And then the last book that I read was Wildfire by Hannah Grace. This is the second book in the Maple Hills series. The first book in the series was Icebreaker, which I think I gave 3 out of 5 stars. I didn't love this. This I also gave 3 out of 5 stars, but it's more of like a 2.5. This follows Russ and Aurora, who have a one-night stand at college, and a few days later it is summer break, and Aurora and Russ bump into each other at a summer camp where they are both counselors. I will say the first beginning of this book, like maybe right before they go to camp, I really enjoyed it. I was really engrossed with it. It was very addicting. I wanted to keep reading. And then they got to camp and I was like, this is so boring. Like, this is so boring. I don't really like any of the other characters. Like, Xander was all right, but he just reminded me of another hockey player on the team. Like, he didn't feel like an original character. It just felt like he was the same as all the other characters that Russ is friends with. I actually really did like Russ. I thought he was a great character. He had some great development. He was also just a really great guy. Aurora I liked. It did take me a while to warm up to her, but in the end I did really like her, and I did like the romance and the characters, but the whole camp aspect was just quite boring to me. It felt like it really dragged on, and I know that it was kind of meant to just build like tension and have angst between our two characters because they really like each other, but they can't act on their feelings. It also definitely was not as steamy as Icebreaker. There definitely wasn't as many sex scenes in this. I mean, it is a lot shorter than Icebreaker is. I definitely would have loved this more if it actually took place at college. I think that would have been way more fun. I think also at times it felt like there were so many like family drama situation and like family issues going on that I didn't really love that because it just felt very overwhelming. Like, Russ and Aurora both had a lot of traumatic, heavy family stuff going on. It just felt like so much was going on and it kind of felt like repetitive in a way. I loved at the beginning and I loved kind of the end. The middle was just very like boring and dragged for me, but I don't know if I want to continue the series. It depends what the third book is about. If it goes back to college and we follow like college vibes, I'll probably end up reading it, but if not, I think it might be time that I stop the series. So those are all the books that I read in August and September. Also, I did start Gothicana by Rue Nix, which I'm still in the middle of. So if you watched one of my most recent vlogs, I didn't DNF it or anything. I'm still reading it. I am 156 pages in. I am really enjoying it. I'm just like not fully in the mood for it. So I've kind of just been reading like a chapter or two every day. I am really loving it though. I'm loving the vibes and the atmosphere, and I'm really loving the female character and the whole mystery, but I just need to take my time with this because I'm not in the right mood or like headspace to read this, so I'm kind of just savoring it, but I am still reading it. Funny Feelings, I am gonna just put aside for now. I'll pick that up whenever I feel like reading a little like friends to lovers fake dating romance. But yeah, I didn't DNF this, I just haven't finished it yet. So those were all 11 books that I read in the last 2 months. Let me know if you have read any of the books that I talked about and what you think about them, or let me know what you have read in the last 2 months. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, follow me on all my other social media, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!